Big Rab Show podcast is kindly sponsored by G1 Reeds. They are the champion's choice, with many bands around the world playing G1 products, providing everything you'd need to hit the circle or the big stage. So, check out g1reeds.com as they keep the lights on here at the Big Rab Show podcast. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another Big Rab Show podcast. Oh, what a few weeks that's been in my end, I have to say. But yeah, we're about to settle in, and we have a full episode to bring you this week, unlike last week. But yeah, we're back again. It's Wednesday, it's podcast night, so it's time for me to get caught up with everything that's been going on in the bagpiping world. Plus, we have quite an exciting topic of the week to bring you. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that later. But first of all, let's get through our introductions, though, shall we? If this is your first ever Big Rab Show podcast, then you are welcome. We are the show for the bagpiping folk. We reflect everything in the bagpiping world, be it Celtic music, folk music, or indeed our bread and butter, which is competitive piping and drumming. Each and every week we're here talking about what we know and love to be the music of the Great Highland Bagpipe and its people. And, yep, the old cliche does ring true. Like every other podcast out there, we do have a Patreon. So, if you do want to go and help support the show, then you can. And go and click on support. And you can get your mitts on loads of extras. Loads of them. All right? You don't need me to tell you what's all back there by now. I'm sure you've probably already had memorised. But yes, we have our weekly Fuse FM Ballymoney radio show, which goes out 2 hours live every Tuesday night, and it's up there on Patreon, where you can download it, yeah, and take it with you and listen to it whenever suits. Or there's loads of backstagey kind of stuff, exclusive interviews, performances, things like that that have never seen the light of day that are only there on Patreon. So if you do want to check those out, be part of the Patreon faithful. There you go. All right. I feel like we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to start with listener mail. Every single episode we do open the door to listener mail, and yeah, this week's no different. bigrabshow@gmail.com, that address again, bigrabshow@gmail.com. Now, I have to say, one of the first things out the door is, yeah, this is on me, all right? Last week's episode was a bit crazy on my end. I did tell you I was dealing with a lot of personal stuff on my own end, and producing a full-blooded episode of the pod with news and updates and all that kind of stuff wasn't possible. And that was very true. But thankfully now, I'm in a much better place and actually have time to sit down and have a chat with you folks. Yeah, so apologies again for last week's episode. That was just absolutely frantic on my end. And yeah, it was all we could do to get an episode out for you guys. But I have to say, what an amazing topic of the week. Again, a huge thank you to Anna Smart and the folks there at the Rolling Drones who've been publishing little clips and stuff from last week's pod, so that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, just shout out to the Rolling Drones, to Anna, and yeah, just a smashing topic of the week last week. So yes, I know last week's episode was very rushed, but seriously, go and have a listen to it. It's quite a good one. And to everyone who did reach out to me in concern, asking me was I okay. So yep, all good, we're all fine. You know, so I have time now to sit down and have a chat with you, whereas last week just absolutely didn't. And you know, that's one of those things, life does catch up with you, you know, and now we're like 400 odd plus episodes at this stage, and we've never missed a single week. I did not want to miss an episode. So last week, yeah, we done all we could to pull out all the stops and get an episode out for you guys. So we made it happen, you know. So yeah, life happens, you know, other priorities take priority, I guess, but the pod still continues. So we did manage to churn one out. So yeah, business as usual though this week, so you're going to be sick listening to me by the time of this week's episode, because we have a lot of ground to catch up on. We have a lot of results and things happening over the past 2 weeks now at this point that we need to delve into. The bagpiping world has been moving with leaps and bounds this last while, it seems, with a lot of moving and shaking happening, and we need to talk about every aspect of it, because it's all important for various reasons. We'll get into all of that. But, again, this week's episode, listener mail, bigrabshow@gmail.com. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who did reach out in concern and asking me, was I all right? Yes, absolutely. I'm 100%. Thank you very much. let's get on with things. We did get an email in here from the National Piping Centre saying about a brand new initiative. It's not really brand new, but it's kind of launched again for this year's Piping Live Festival. Yes, they're putting out an open call for all artists for their emerging talent stage at Piping Live 2025. Yeah, I know, this is April, and we're already talking about Piping Live. But, this rolls around every year, and, it really gives food for thought for the folks there at the National Piping Centre, because I don't know how they make the decision on who hits that stage, but it's going to be a difficult one this year. There's a lot of great new emerging talent that I definitely think could tread the boards, this year's Piping Live. Anyway, let's talk about the email. And to go through it here, say, hey, Big Rab, the emerging talent stage is going to be opening again and opportunities are available now. You can email in a short video track of you playing, either the name of your own solo act or your group name, and email it all in to contact@pipinglive.co.uk. All right? That's the crux of it. So, if you do want to be on that emerging talent stage at the Piping Live Festival this year, now is your opportunity. Yeah. There is a panel of judges who will evaluate your video that you send them. That includes the artistic director, of course, Finlay MacDonald, and a bunch of others who will also be looking at, the level of musicianship that's on display, the creativity, the originality, all of that. So, and then they also add in a little bit of an extra that I thought was really interesting here. It says, acts are not required to include bagpipes in their lineup, though preference may be given to those that do. Whoa! Now that's interesting right there, isn't it? Yeah, so not only would a video link be appropriate, but also if you have like tracks on services like SoundCloud or any other streaming platform for that matter, like Spotify or things like that, then if you can send that into them as well, that would be helpful. They would prefer if you could send them a video of you performing live so they can see that you can do the business on stage. But if not, then all of those links will definitely be helpful. So, as I've said, now is your opportunity. If you do want to be part of that emerging talent stage at Piping Live, email them in. contact@pipinglive.co.uk. And the deadline for entries is 5 p.m. on the 16th of May. So you do have a bit of time now to get all of that stuff together. Your live video, your performance clips and stuff, and maybe some music from an EP or a demo or something, and then email it into them. And I hope to see you on stage there at the emerging talent stage at Piping Live. Yeah, there's been some huge, big names launched at that, I have to say. For anyone who has never checked out the emerging talent performance at Piping Live, what are you doing? Yeah, there's been some massive names in the piping game that have been launched at the Piping Live Festival through that emerging talent stage. It's absolutely brilliant. So, good luck if you are thinking of applying. And I hope to be reading your name out as part of the lineup for this year's festival. That's exciting. Again, just to remind you, the deadline is the 16th of May at 5 p.m. UK time, and the email address is contact@pipinglive.co.uk. Good luck to everyone. All right. We did get other emails in, but mostly admin stuff from behind the scenes, I guess, preparations for future episodes and stuff. But also, we've been doing a bit of groundwork ourselves here on the Big Rab Show. And groundwork from the point of view of covering this incoming season. Believe it or not, it does take quite a bit of administration behind the scenes to actually switch our cameras on. And that's possibly going to be a future topic of the week right there. We do want to talk about this with the bagpiping world and your own perceptions of videoing at competitions. We want to talk about the positives, the negatives, and everything else aside. Yeah, it's been a little while since we did delve into this topic good and proper. I'm sure you all do remember, #Streamgate, when we were banned from live streaming at competitions. Thankfully, that is all now fixed and behind us. But we do still, every year, invest quite a bit of time looking at the administration and making sure that we cross every T and dot every I, and we keep both the bands and the association happy. And make sure that we're doing what we should. So, it's an interesting one, folks, and we do want to delve into that in a future topic of the week. And looking at our admin, that's what we've been working on over those past few weeks. Yeah. So, if you are anyways curious or have any opinions on videoing at competitions, be it live or otherwise, then please do email us in. bigrabshow@gmail.com. That address again, bigrabshow@gmail.com. And we will be tackling that in a future topic of the week right there. There you are. All right. I think that's pretty much it for listener mail this week. Say most of the emails we got, we're all talking about the rolling drones and asking for links and stuff, so we provided all of that. We also got a lot of questions following the Ulster solos and stuff, and yes, we managed to help everybody out with that. We got a lot of queries actually about asking why we weren't live streaming from the Ulster solos, and I guess that kind of brings us on to what we're going to be talking about on our topic of the week in a future pod. We don't live stream at solo competitions anymore, following a ruling. Anyway, that's a topic that we can get into. If you are so interested, bigrabshow@gmail.com. You can let us know your thoughts on that. All right, let's move on, shall we? Yeah, we will tackle that topic at a different time, but not today. We have another topic for you. All right, after we've done listener mail, you guessed it, we do open the door to Weekly Drone. And we've got a couple of drones on the shelf, actually. Yeah, so, JD, let us have this week's first Weekly Drone.
It's the Weekly Drone.
Cracking it big, young. G'day, Rab. I'm really gutted to feel such a smoke up the backside culture within the piping community, specifically over here in Oceania. What I mean is that young players are pushed too hard, too fast to play for that grade 1 level, and can't cope with the pressure and demand that adults have the ability to withstand. Don't get me wrong, there are some incredible juvenile players that can crack out big tunes with the rest of them. For instance, all the young fellas that went to 2023 Worlds with the Kiwi bands, of which we saw their journey through the 12,000 Miles documentary. However, something I have seen personally is young players getting picked up to play for those grade 1 big bands when they are very young, 15 to 18 years old, and then can't keep up when they leave school. I worry that while it's an awesome opportunity for them to expand their playing, they aren't growing how they should be. I know that some of the bands run development programs that highlight those young'uns coming through their lower grade bands as players of great potential and support them in their piping and drumming journeys. Essentially, I just want any kids listening to know that if you haven't cracked grade 1 by the time you're 18 and won all these top competitions, not only do you have many, many years ahead of you, but your journey has only started. And there is immense value to you staying back in the lower bands, taking on leadership roles, pushing yourself in the solo space, and honing your craft. Just because you aren't Kerr McLauchlan, and no shade on him, he's an incredible drummer, there's so much you can aspire to. Paint your own legacy and become the best player you can be. And don't listen to those people who tell you they expect to see you in the grade 1 circle because you're taking too long. I bet they don't value the lower grades of pipe bands. San Shiva.
Weekly Droner, you do raise a lot there within a short space of time. Yeah, we did raise this somewhat in a previous episode of the show where we did talk about youth bagpiping, and it seemed to be that the goal was to punch through to that grade 1 level and to stand in that grade 1 arena, at an incredibly young age. That has been the current trend we've noticed over this past decade, I would argue. And definitely there's been a huge trend, as we've seen it in person, obviously, with Australian and New Zealand kids coming through that system so quickly and being able to hit that grade 1 circle and absolutely melt our face. Now, we're not talking about their capability here, but we are absolutely talking about, is this too much too soon? Do you need to have a level of maturity to be able to handle the pressures of grade 1? And even at that, like our weekly droner suggested, Is grade 1 the measure of success? Yeah, that's a valid question. Should the level of success be measured through, the happiness in playing, the ability to hang around with your pipe band that taught you from day one, and perhaps, as you suggested, taking on a leadership role, and perhaps doing more tuition and teaching and coaching and bringing more people along, and instead of the individual standing in the grade 1 circle, who knows, 5 years time, your band might be standing in that grade 1 circle. You never know, the sky is the limit. But as for the suggestion that it could be too much too soon, it's a fair point to make. I don't know, if I'm brutally honest. My experience of playing in the top flight grades, it's incredibly high pressured, for sure. But it's also a pressure that the player applies on themselves to be a functioning band member. The amount of work involved, the practice, the dedication, the constantly running to band practice and constantly practicing at home, the level of pressure that you apply yourself as a musician, and being able to function within a team of musicians to produce the pinnacle of music. And that's one of the things, I guess. Do the kids at that level, do they apply the same level of pressure that perhaps an adult would? Don't know. That's an arguable topic, that one. So I would love to know your thoughts on this yourselves, folks out there. This is quite an interesting one. It's definitely a trend that we've noticed, where youngsters have definitely been pushed towards that top flight. And is it a push too soon, too quick? Definitely from a musicality perspective, I would say absolutely not. There's a lot of young talent in there in the grade 1 circle that can definitely thump out a tune. Oh my word, some of the players that are in that circle nowadays, they're so good and also so young, with a wealth of time ahead of them and a huge career in front of them as well. So a wealth of bagpiping and music ahead of these young kids. But is it too much too soon? I don't know. The measure of success is different for everyone. Perhaps standing in that grade 1 circle does not mean success for everyone. And that's worth considering also. Weekly Droner, that was an incredibly interesting one, and one that I think we're going to get some mileage out of. I think we're going to get some strong opinions on this. So, email us in yours, bigrabshow@gmail.com, or, of course, you can go to our website, thebigrabshow.com, and let us know your own thoughts on this, completely warts and all, and, completely anonymous, as you just heard. Big button at the top of the page saying Weekly Drone. Let us have it. All right, JD. That was quite a heavy one. Have we got any? Oh, we do. We have another one on the shelf. JD, give us another one.
It's the Weekly Drone.
Rab, a week or so ago, I saw a post on the RSPBA socials saying that the speculation of a low number of grade 1 bands at the major in July was mere speculation and rumor. Today, they came out and said that only 3 grade 1 bands are expected to go to Edinburgh for the 12th of July. Johnston, Slot, and the Boggies. So it turns out that the mere rumors last week were in fact deadly accurate all along. I have cut this directly from the website, royalhighlandcenter.co.uk. Whether you're a fan of Scottish culture, viewing the exciting competition, an exhibitor, or just looking for a great day out, that promises to be a day of pumping, drumming, and traditional Scottish music for all the family. I'm pretty sure that is meant to say piping, but it shows the total lackluster way this event has been thrown together and marketed by organizers and stakeholders. The only pumping is the £15 a head for a ticket to see a handful of bands in a park in the middle of nowhere, with planes taking off and landing within spitting distance all day. Shambles.
Weekly Droner, I was doing my research on this one, and I can't actually see where it has been confirmed by the RSPBA that there are 3 Grade 1 bands entered for the UK Championships. I haven't been able to track that at all online. I've checked through their social media accounts, I've checked through their own website, and there's been nothing really officially published that announces such a thing. However, there was an article that was published on pipesdrums.com, and they did reach out to all Grade 1 bands that were competing and this season, and, well, they did ask them, are you going to be competing at the UK Championships? And only 3 of the 9 active Grade 1 bands in Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland confirmed that they were planning to compete at the UK's. And yes, as you correctly mentioned there, it was Johnstone, Peoplesford, Boghall, Bathgate and St Lawrence O'Toole are the only 3 bands that apparently, they say in inverted commas, apparently responded to pipesdrums.com. Now, that's not to say that there are other bands out there that are definitely planning on competing and perhaps already have their entry forms in. But, yeah, we just have to rely on pipesdrums.com and their reliable sources, in inverted commas again. So, folks, I would take that with a pinch of salt until we actually see the draw for ourselves. We don't know what the UK Championships is actually going to look like. But, yes, if we do believe the rumours and stories that have been published online, then it doesn't look good. In fact, it does look kind of bleak. Now, our weekly droner did mention pumping there. Yes, you go to the royalhighlandcentre.co.uk, and yes, at the time where we received this weekly drone, that was exactly what was written there. It promises to be a day of pumping and drumming and traditional Scottish music for all the family. Yikes. Now, I believe this to be the case. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that the folks there at the royalhighlandcentre.co.uk were perhaps using a little bit of AI in the design of their website. Yes, whenever you dig through their website and you look at other events that they have listed, they all seem quite generic, and they do seem to be churned out on a regular basis, and perhaps someone working in the office there is using an AI tool to help them with their advertising for events. And I do think this is one of those moments where AI has, kicked them in the backside. Now, once this fault was noted, and our weekly droner clearly noted it there, it was published all across social media, and as you can imagine, the keyboard warriors did have a field day. So, right now, if you do go and check the royalhighlandcentre.co.uk, the website, it has now been corrected, and it will now not be a day of pumping, it will be a day of piping. Thank goodness. Now, as for the entries for the UK Championships on the 12th of July, that all remains to be seen. For now, it does remain rumour until we have it actual in black and white. And for now, it's speculation. However, one of the things that I did want to talk about the UK Championships, and thank you, Weekly Droner, for approaching this topic, 15 quid for a ticket. See the amount of people that have contacted us about this? About the entry fee for the UK Championships? Wow. 15 quid for an adult. That's steep. Even in, I don't know, I've been to plenty of competitions in my time, and paying 15 quid to access the UK Championships, I don't know. I don't know, especially if it's going to be a reduced entry as well, by all accounts. It's definitely going to be worth of a consideration if you are planning on attending the UK Championships this year on the 12th of July. You're going to have to buy a ticket for 15 quid. Yeah, so I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I know what mine are. And I'd love to know your opinions. Email us in, bigrabshow@gmail.com, or of course, you can let us know your own weekly drone. Yeah. So, yes, the website's been corrected, and as for the actual numbers of the UK Championships, we're just going to have to wait on that front until it's officially published. All right, so as mentioned, if you do want to send us in your own weekly drone and have JD read out your own thoughts and opinions, complete warts and all, completely anonymous as well, then, let us have it. bigrabshow.com, and there's a big button at the top of the page saying weekly drone. Let us have it. All right, folks, I think at this point I'll go and take myself a wee break, and I'll be right back with all of the news and updates. Now, we've got a lot to get into, so it might take us a wee while, but we'll get there. you wish piping could be fun again? Bagpipers around the world continue to struggle with their instrument, despite hours of hard work trying to get better. Bagpiping should be fulfilling. Your hard work should pay off, showing improvement and the freedom to express yourself musically. Or why do it? The Dojo University believe every piper should be able to free themselves from musical frustration, proven over more than a decade of successful teaching and accessible anywhere with an internet connection. The Dojo is unlike any other bagpipe learning experience in the world. Let the Dojo channel your enthusiasm into a fun and fulfilling program that will empower you with the knowledge to fall in love with piping all over again. So go to dojouniversity.com/Big Rab and take advantage of our 30-day free trial of Dojo Premium membership. Join the global community of students today and rediscover the fun of bagpiping. dojouniversity.com/Big Rab for a 30-day free trial. Ready to take your playing to the next level? Say hello to the ES Session Chanter, the ultimate practice chanter designed for versatility and durability. Crafted from stainless steel and aluminium, the chanter comes equipped for both an A stem and a B flat stem, giving you the freedom to play along with any instrument, anytime, anywhere. Whether at a band practice or a trad session, the ES Session Chanter keeps pace with your creativity. Included with the chanter is the custom carbon carry case, the perfect addition to this compact and tactile instrument. To get yours, head to essessionchanter.co.uk. Okay, let's get into the news and updates. Now, I have to say, we're going to be trying our best to catch up on 2 weeks of bagpiping action. And I know, as a dead cert, we're not going to be able to catch up on all of it. So, if there is something that does hit the cutting room floor, please do get a hold of us. Send us in a message, bigrabshow@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to cover every aspect. But, as I say, there will be stuff that has to go by the wayside for time more than anything else. All right. Where do we start? Well, I think we should start with the Ulster Solos. We didn't get a chance to talk about them last week, and I have to say, the venue at Cookstown High School has received rave reviews. I think the venue itself worked incredibly well for the Ulsters, and seeing how many people were entered to compete for this year's Ulster Solo Championship, yeah, I'm kind of glad that the venue went so well, because there was, I don't know, absolutely packed grades, I have to say. From right the way through, from beginner, practice chanter and drum pad, all the way through to the open grades. It just seemed to be pretty much a packed house, to be fair. So, yeah, I'm not going to give a hashtag list, because I'm sure by now you've probably seen all of the results from the Ulster Solos. But, yeah, from a piping perspective, just want to give a shout-out to Ulster champion, to Alistair Donaghy. Yes, he managed to pick it up on Pembroke Preference. Well done, Alistair. Of course, piper of the Field Marshal Montgomery. And then on the drumming front, then congratulations to Stephen Crichton, of course, lead tipper of the mighty St. Lawrence. So, yeah, just all round a blistering great competition, and well done to everyone, by the way. So, yeah, there was tenor drum, bass drumming, and piping aplenty, as well as the snare drumming competition as well. So, a lot to take in there, the Ulsters. Now, unfortunately, I didn't manage to attend myself in person, and as we mentioned earlier, yeah, we didn't bring any cameras to the Ulster Solos, and that's maybe a topic for another day. But, yeah, if you are so aggrieved, there's been a lot of correspondence on that, so if you do have opinions on whether we should be bringing cameras to the solos, then let us know. But, yeah, so far, the decision has been that we're not doing that. Anyway, let's move on. Ulster Solos, absolutely a roaring success, and I'm really looking forward to the next one, actually. And I'm not sure if Cookstown High School will be the brand new venue for this. Very good question, but hi, I think by all accounts the event ran like absolute clockwork with no huge delays or issues. So well done to everyone there at the association who ran it, and of course to the venue as well. Just all round a stellar, great event. Now, stay with me here. I'm going to be doing a lot of Northern Irish news, okay? So Obviously, we're based in Northern Ireland, so yeah, we can be biased for a little while, but we will get into all the depth of everything else happening. But yeah, the RSPBA Northern Ireland branch announced a brand new president. Yes, Betty Booth has taken up the role as new honorary president. Yes, at the Ulster Solos, there was a presentation from the outgoing president, Winston Pickerton, as he handed over the chains to Betty. So, yeah, congratulations to Betty, and looking forward to catching up with her on the grass this season. Not only that, having a new president, but they also have a new chairperson at the helm as well. Yes, taking over from Alistair Patterson, of course. We were waiting on the announcement to see who was going to be taking up this new role. So congratulations to Andrew Graham, who has taken up the role as chairperson. So, yeah, if you are anyways curious about these appointments, there are all sorts of reports available on the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association Northern Ireland branch website. Yeah, they're not using the acronym anymore. Have you noticed this? They've had a bit of a rebranding as well, with new flashy logos and stuff. It does look very cool. And they no longer have just the RSPBA NI. That's it. They're now having their full title emblazoned across all of their stuff, which is really cool, by the way. So, yeah, well done to the RSPBA NI. I'll still be referring to you as that. I'm an old dog. It's difficult to teach me new tricks, I guess. But, yeah, very exciting new appointments there, of course. The top brass there at the Northern Ireland branch. You can go and read all that on their website. Now, speaking of the Northern Ireland branch, they have announced their full calendar of events. And, yeah, a lot of these dues... Yeah, they're kind of up in the air as to where exactly they are within each town, but we will confirm that as we get closer to the time. Yeah, so I'm going to start with the County Fermanagh Championships. That's going to be happening in Enniskillen, of course, on the 24th of May. On the 7th of June, then, is the Mid-Ulsters in Cookstown High School, of course. 14th of June, then, is the Lisburn and Castlereagh Championships happening in Moira. Yeah, and I think I know where the venue is there, but we will confirm that, of course, closer to the time. 28th of June, the Antrim and Newtownabbey Championships are happening in Antrim. Now, whether that's in the Castle Gardens or not sure. That'll hopefully get confirmed. On the 5th of July, of course, is the 78th All-Ireland Championships being held in Derry/Londonderry. And, yeah, we have already talked about the venue for this one and how it's shaping up to be quite a huge competition. By all accounts. Yeah, apparently there's been a lot of interest from Scottish, English, and possibly some international bands as well, hopefully turning up for that one. So, yeah, that's a date for your diary right there. The 5th of July, the 70th All-Ireland Championships. That's going to be a big one, that. And then, of course, the 12th of July is the UK Championships in Edinburgh. Yes, our first major in the season, happening on a controversial date. Yeah, we've spoken about that already. On the 19th of July, we're being promised a branch competition in Newtownards. Now, as to where that will be, we have no idea, has yet to be confirmed, but there will be a contest on that date, and we'll, again, chat more about it as it gets closer. 26th of July, then, is, of course, the Scottish in Dumbarton. Yes, the second of our major championships. That's always a big highlight in the calendar for me. I love Dumbarton. I think it's such a fantastic contest. And there it is, 26th of July. Then, of course, on the 2nd of August, yeah, we're heading back to Portrush for the 72nd Ulster Championships. And I'm so chuffed to be going back to the port. It's been too long since there's been a pipe band competition in Portrush. And we were talking all about it last night on Fuse, actually. So, yeah, a lot of people from Ballymoney and in and around that area are very, very happy to see a competition return to Portrush. Now, as to where it's going to be in the port, there's been talk that it's going to be in the West Strand. It's not going to be up in Ramore Head anymore. As for that, yeah, I'm hoping the RSPBA Northern Ireland branch will confirm that. So we'll wait and see. Then, of course, on the 9th of August, that's going to be an interesting day because we have a choice of two competitions that day for Northern Irish bands. Yeah, the RSPBA Euros, the European Championships, are taking place in Perth, of course, another major championship. But, yeah, also on the 9th of August, the Northern Ireland branch have been given special permission to run, a minor competition on the same date, which will be the end of the Northern Irish season. So that'll be the Heart O'Down Championships, and that's going to be held in Newcastle, County Down. Yeah, so they're going to be crowning their champion of champions on that date. And, after that, of course, is the big one. We have the 15th and 16th of August in Glasgow for the Worlds. And not forgetting, on the 15th of August, we also have the World Youth Championships. Now, we have received a wealth of correspondence on that. all right? But I think we're going to have to try and dedicate a full episode to it because there's a wealth of different opinions out there on this. And we've spoke about this at length already. You know, once this got announced and everything, yeah, there was a lot of feelings in and around this and a lot of very strong opinions as well. So, yeah, if you have any such opinions about the World Youth Championships, then again, you know the email address, bigrabshow@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts, and yeah, that will be on a future episode of the show. All right, now I did start with the County Fermanagh Championships. I just wanted to mention this weekend is an indoor pipe band competition happening in County Antrim. Yes, thanks to the County Antrim section, this is all happening this weekend, as I've mentioned, and it's all sorts of exciting. Now, the draw for this is available online right now, all the way from 4B up to Grade 2, and very exciting stuff here. So we're getting to see a lot of our competitive bands taking a bit of a run out before they hit the grass in Enniskillen. So, I don't know, there's a lot moving and shaking from a Northern Ireland perspective, all right? And I am very aware that I could be talking to quite an international audience, and a lot of that Northern Irish news means nothing to all of you guys. So I will tie a little bow on that, and thank you for letting me be self-indulgent and talk about the Northern Irish scene. But yeah, things are moving and shaking on our end, and we have quite a lot of dates and things happening from the Northern Irish competitive piping scene, and yeah, figured I would give it a mention here on the show. All right, well, also speaking of events that are happening this weekend, I have to give a mention to the City of Edinburgh Pipe Band, who are hosting their annual Pipe Majors Wheel of Fortune competition. Yeah, it's hard to believe that this is rolling round already. Yes, of course, being held this weekend, Saturday the 26th, in the Danderhall Miners Club in Midlothian. They have announced the full lineup and everything. And yeah, for more information, you can go and check out the City of Edinburgh Pipe Band on their socials, where they've been updating us on all of the background and what's required with this competition. Really quite interesting whenever you look at the amount of tunes that you could potentially have to play. But it's one of those things where you hit one of those, what do you call it? It's like a Wheel of Fortune, can't you? Like the rickety wheel. You kind of spin the thing and it goes, you need to play an MSR right now. Yeah, it's very interesting. So, and a lot of fun as well. So, the entrants so far for it, the competitors, we have Sandy Cameron, John Dew, Cameron Drummond, Brian Lomond, Gordon McCready, Cameron May, Ross Miller, and Sarah Muir. Yeah. Now, the playing requirements, I wasn't going to go through these actually, but I will. All right, there's 12 numbers on the rickety wheel, like I just mentioned there, right? There's 12 of them, and all 12 of them are assigned to a certain kind of tune that you need to perform, all right? Okay, now bear with me. There's an Alan MacDonald tune, there's a Donald MacLeod tune, there's a female name tune. Now, that could be anything, all right? You can also, you can land on possibly a Gaelic or Irish slow air, a Gordon Duncan tune, a G.S. McClellan tune, a hornpipe, one of your own compositions, because a lot of the competitors are composers in their own right. You can also, land on a pibroch, where they limit you to the ground. They don't want all the variations. Also, a polka. Now, that's all sorts of fun. There's not many competitions that urge you to play a polka. That's fun. Also, then you have 2 jigs or 2 reels. Brilliant. So, yeah, this is all determined by spinning a gold enchanter on, like I say, a rickety wheel, and it could be a lot of great fun. Such a brilliant competition. I have to say that we've been hearing reports about this from this past few years, and it's just been a roaring success. For everyone there at the City of Edinburgh Pipe Band, what a brilliant idea. And, yeah, I know people who absolutely can't wait for this every year. And I know that the competitors do put in a wealth of work to learn all of that material, and then they roll the dice, as they say, and then, yeah, good luck. So, to all of the competitors, have the best tune, enjoy yourselves, but yeah, if you are wanting to attend that's this weekend in the Danderhall Miners Club in Midlothian, and for more information, go and check out the City of Edinburgh Pipe Band on their socials. Yeah. Now, we didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but there was a bit of a news story about quite an iconic figure in the bagpiping world. Yeah, for those of you who know your piping history, I'm sure by now you'll probably have already heard about the Piper of Lewes. Yes, Piper Daniel Logan Laidlaw, VC, who is otherwise known as the Piper of Lewes. Yeah, of course, for those of you who know the story, Daniel Logan Laidlaw won the Victoria Cross Medal back in World War I for acts of bravery. And I'm not going to go through the story of it here now, but suffice to say, the ASA charity in Scotland are working behind the scenes to produce and unveil a bronze bust of Piper Daniel Logan Laidlaw VC in his home village of Swindon in Berkshire. Yeah. Now, this is such an amazing story. For anyone who is interested in piping during wartime, specifically during World War I, you're definitely going to be aware of this story and the particular bravery. They have a bit of an online fundraiser for all of this, and they're selling things like, bottles of whiskey or, like little badges and things like that. They're doing what they can to raise enough funds to be able to unveil this on the anniversary of when he actually went over the top, as they say. And that would be in the September 25th of this year. It'll be the 110th anniversary, to be precise. So, yeah, if you are anyways curious, there are articles about this published up there on bagpipe.news. We've shared it out there, of course, across our socials as well, where you can go and read about the tales of bravery and all of that. And, what you can do to possibly help contribute and make such a fitting tribute possible. Yeah. So, if you are anyways curious, go and check them out. But I thought that was quite an interesting story for history buffs. And, yeah, if you aren't aware of the Piper of Lewes, go and check it out. Such an amazing story. And if anything, it kind of brought me, whenever I was doing my research on this, I knew there was a television program that was made for the BBC here in the UK called Pipers of the Trenches. Now, you talk about such a heart-rendering story of all of these pipers who went into war with not a weapon under their arm, but a set of pipes. And, man, I don't know. Such amazing bravery by these pipers. Terrifying. So, as I said, go and check out the details of this story. Such an incredible act of bravery. And we're now almost 110 years on from the anniversary. And the charity in Scotland, now the ASA charity, who are trying to place a fitting tribute to this quite huge figure in the bagpiping world for sure. All right, let's move on. Now, we gave a mention earlier to, entries are open for the emerging talent stage at Piping Live, but also entries are now open for the Masters. Yes, the Masters competition, which takes place every year at Piping Live. Well, entries are open now, and they're available until, the 26th of June, so you do have a bit of time on this. Now, the overall winner from this, of course, will qualify for the Glenfiddich. So that's obviously quite a tempting prospect there. And also you'll get a place at the Sunbelt Invitational competition. Yeah, so I don't know, what's not to love right there? So if you've ever fancied treading the boards at Glenfiddich and you fancy your chances at the Masters, entries are open right now. For more information, of course, you can go to the National Piping Centre on their website, where they have all of the application details right there. So you do have up until the 26th of June if you do want to compete at the Masters this year. There you are. Okay, now I know we're sort of rattling through some results from competitions and stuff. I have to give a mention to Greg Wilson, who actually broke a record over this past weekend. Yes, in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand, on April 19th, Greg managed to win a record 18th former winners clasp, which is insane. So, full congratulations. And in the record books, right there. There you go. Yeah, to win any former winners competition more than once is notable, but to win it 18 times, Greg, well done. In the record books, definitely, that's one for the ages right there. Yeah, congratulations. Also, I have to talk about Cameron Bonner as well, who becomes the youngest winner of the McCrimmon Cairn at the BCPA annual gathering. Yes, the BC Pipers Association, of course, had their annual gathering this past weekend with, results aplenty, including, we had quite an interesting brand new medley unveiled by Simon Fraser University. Oh, yes, we did. And we had an MSR performance from them as well. And that everyone was talking about that medley run from Simon Fraser. Well done. But we have to say congratulations to Cameron Bonner, who became the youngest winner of the McCrimmon Cairn at the BCPA event. He's just 17. What? Yeah, he's just 17 years old and lifting such a top prize. Just full congratulations, Cameron. Just absolutely brilliant. But also to all of the bands that were involved in that competition as well. We did manage to see a good number of the performances. I think we've seen some of the performances, particularly from the Gregland Crossing, Portland Metro as well. I think we had a few there from the Keith Highlanders were sent to us as well on socials. Also, the Robert Malcolm Memorial in Grade 4 sounded really good. And Cascadia as well in their MSR run in Grade 4. Anyway, I have to say, well done to everyone who was performing at that and competing and duking it out for top prizes. Well done, everyone. It's quite a huge list of prize winners there, so it definitely seemed to be very well supported. So well done to everyone at the BCPA annual gathering. Very exciting news, and congratulations to Cameron there. Absolutely brilliant. Speaking of brand new medleys, by the way, and we were talking about Simon Fraser University, well, of course, this past weekend was Fife Police in concert. Yeah, dancing on the beats. I have to say, huge congratulations to everyone there at Bucksburn, and of course to Fife Police themselves. The show was absolutely blistering. I have to say a huge thank you as well for having us there on the Big Rab Show. We were there with our cameras and we managed to film quite a bit from the actual concert itself, and we are sporadically uploading those videos when we get a chance. It's been quite busy on our end, I'm afraid, so we haven't had them all completed yet, but we will get those videos up on our YouTube channel, so if you aren't subscribed to us, then do go and check it out. But I have to say, one of the first videos that we published from the concert was the brand new 2025 competitive medley, and it's been the talk of the town. It's, how do I describe it? It is quintessential Fife Police. It's so creative, and the drumming, it's not ultra technical, but definitely it's there. You know, they do have that voice, but it really does complement the music so well, is what I'm saying here. It's a very musical medley this time round. Man, I just don't know. This is going to be a year for musical medleys, I think. Listening to Simon Fraser's new offering, that's brilliant, and again, I would describe that as ultra musical. By now, you're bound to have heard Inverere's brand new offering, of course, the Dream Valley medley, as I've been calling it on Fuse, and we've been playing it now for this last few weeks. That's been the talk of the town as well. Well, now that Fife Police have unveiled theirs, along with St. Lawrence O'Toole, they unleashed theirs at the Kids with Cancer charity night. We are starting to see a whole new musical approach by a lot of our top flight bands, and yeah, the only word that I could use to describe them is that they're incredibly musical. No longer are these bands wanting to show off and, absolutely thump us in the face with finger fireworks, is what I want to call them. You know, look at how fast we can play this, absolutely thumping hornpipe and jig and absolutely melt our face, right? That's not the case anymore. Now, we're seeing a lot of our grade 1 top flight bands, they're kind of taking a step back and letting the music sing. Yeah, so honestly, I'm all for it. I think it's brilliant. And a lot of our top flight bands are also looking back through the archives and bringing through some of those older tunes that we might not have heard for a while. And I'm all for it. It's just such an exciting time to be involved in competitive piping with all of this new music being unveiled at concerts. It's just so exciting. So, if you're anyways curious as to what happened at the Fife Police concert, and maybe you haven't heard that new medley yet that they've unveiled, well, do consider going over there to the Big Rab Show on YouTube, where we are sharing out those clips as soon as we can. But definitely check out their new competitive medley. It's an absolute thumper. And full credit to everyone there at Fife Police. And I have to give a shout out this week, of course, to Stuart Campbell and to Diane as well, who were helping out furiously behind the scenes. They had a massive weekend of work and quite a bit of travel on their part as well, because it was all the way up in Aberdeen. So thank you to Stuart, Dan. Thank you so much. You guys were awesome, covering all aspects from that show. And all of that will now live on our YouTube channel. And of course, some little extras for our Patreon folks as well. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, if you do want to see those extras from the Fife Police concert, then yeah, do consider heading over there to Patreon. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's move swiftly on before I let the cat out of the bag, as they say. Also, I have to give a shout out to the National Youth Pipe Band of Scotland, who held a concert on the same date as Fife Police, but they were in the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall in Glasgow. And yeah, from all accounts, I have to say, I've heard nothing but glowing reviews of so many people who attended it and were just absolutely blown away at the talent of these young musicians on stage who really did thump out some big tunes. Now, we have shared out a lot of those performances as we've seen them from people managed to grab little cheeky clips and stuff online, so that was a lot of fun. Thank you to those folks who did. So, yeah, we've shared those out. So, again, congratulations to the National Youth Pipe Band of Scotland. Just a very, very exciting initiative, you know. And, yeah, we see the fruit of their labour at their end-of-year concert each year. And this one did not disappoint at all. Well done to everyone at the NYPBOS. And, yeah, looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing next year. Yeah. Now, at the point of me recording this, I have to give a shout-out to the Major Sinclair Memorial. Yes, and other pipe bands who are going to be performing at this year's VTAT. Yes, their Virginia Tattoo. Well, they're already in full flow. With the Major Sinclair Memorial taking the trip across to the United States and doing various little bits of outreach and stuff. They've been attending local schools and showing school kids how to pipe and drum and other things. There's been a lot of stuff that the band has been up to, and it's brilliant to see a band from sunny Northern Ireland heading across to the States and thumping out some big tunes. Now, I am very much looking forward to seeing some potential clips and stuff from the Virginia Tattoo. So if any of you are going to that, then please do bring a little cheeky camera with you or something, you know, and maybe grab a clip or two for us, especially from the piping and drumming elements. Yeah. So, yeah, just shout out to the Major Sinclair Memorial. It was brilliant to see a lot of familiar faces out there in the United States thumping out some big tunes and entertaining audiences all across. So it's excellent to see. So, yeah, have the best time. Enjoy the tattoo experience. I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely blistering event. Looking at everything that has been posted on socials so far, it's shaping up to be one of the biggest yet. So, yeah, the VTAT, I'm very, very excited. So, yeah, good luck to everyone involved there, and in particular, a shout out to the Major Sinclair Memorial. Looking forward to seeing you out there, and yeah, have a good tune, folks. Also have to give a shout out to, well, a load of pipe bands who were competing at the PBBSO Toronto Indoors. Yeah, that was a wee while ago. From the point of me recording this, I think it was actually on Sunday. I've seen a lot of these clips appearing online. But yeah, I'm not going to read through a hashtag list of who won what and where, but I have to say there was a lot of really entertaining music taking place there. So yeah, the PBBSO Toronto Indoor Competition seemed to be running really well, and yeah, well supported too by the band's folk. So well done to everyone who competed there. And yeah, if you have a particular performance and stuff that you would like us to highlight here in the show on our socials, then please do let us know, and we'll be very happy to share that. Yeah. Now, I have to give a mention to, well, the Brig Pipe Band. Yes, of course, from Brittany and France, who have put out an announcement on their socials saying, well, this year they're going to be participating in the World Championships. No! Absolutely. Wow. Now, this is what I was hoping for. All right. Now, whenever I seen the announcement about the Lorient Festival and how a lot of the Bagad competitions might not be happening as a result, well, I was hopeful that a lot of these bands would then now look to the UK in the hope that possibly duking it out at the World Championships. And we're starting to see that coming through now to fruition. So, the Brig Pipe Band are one of the first ones I've seen making the announcement that they're going to be travelling to the Worlds this year from that Breton scene. So, yeah, I'm very curious to see them on the grass, and I'm really excited to hear what music they're going to bring. So that's going to be a very, very exciting prospect for our World Championships this year. So, yeah, as more bands get announced for this, hopefully, I will certainly let you folks know. But that's the first one I'm aware of. There may well be others. But yeah, very excited to see the Brig Pipe Band in the competition circle. Oh, good stuff. Also, this past weekend was the North of Scotland branch full band indoor competition, which took place on the 19th there. And honestly, there was some real blistering good music played at that. Again, I'm not going to read a hashtag list of who won what. Too much to get into here, but I do have to give a particular mention actually to the Texo D-Side Caledonia Pipe Band, who unveiled their brand new competition medley for 2025. And can I say their opener? Yeah, the Kilworth Hills tune. Woo! It's wow. Go and have a listen to it, is all I'm going to say. All right, but shout out to Texco D-Side Caledonia. I'm absolutely a fan, and I can't wait to see where this medley goes. If anything, that's one of the things about the unveiling of new stuff. You know, if you're unveiling new competition stuff at this point in April, this will definitely not be the finished product by the time it reaches the grass in August in Glasgow. So I'm very curious to see what way these new medleys will change shape over time. But brand new music from Texco, D-Side Caledonia, and loads of other bands. Just a very exciting time, as I mentioned earlier. Oh, it's great. Now, I was sort of keeping an eye out as well from that North of Scotland competition in the hope that we would see something from the Grampian Police Pipe Band. Yeah, I believe they were entered, and I was hopeful to see little clips and stuff from them online, but unfortunately they had to withdraw and did not compete at the event, so it's one of those things. However, they did not disappoint though, and they managed to upload a little performance from their recent Ceilidh, and it was their version of The Man from Skye. Yeah, so if anyone's curious about the Grampian Police Pipe Band, and I'm definitely one of them, so if I'm curious, I'm sure you are too, go along on their social media and you can check out that clip for yourself. And yeah, the band are sounding really well, I'll say that. And they're looking sharp too, so yeah, shout out to Grampian Police. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to present on the Circle this year. But yeah, anyone's curious to see what they're sounding like, go and check out their version of The Man from Skye. There you are. Okay, so I think we briefly touched on this on last week's show, but there was an article published online from Pipe Bands Queensland, and they were talking about a decision that was made about the Anzac Day parade and the banning of pipe bands. Now, the reasoning behind this is because it was believed that pipe bands marched too slowly, and they could not march up to full military pace. Now, this story, as you can imagine, it absolutely grew legs online. And as this story broke and was announced by Pipe Bands Queensland, well, yeah, the keyboard warriors had an absolute field day. The piping world there in Queensland, Australia, were absolutely in outrage. And this actually reached the national news. Yeah, so it was on programs like 9 News Queensland, the Sunrise Show, it was on the Today Show, the ABC Show in Brisbane, and 4BC Brisbane, which was all like local TV stations and stuff, who ran this story. And the public outrage was just... I've never seen such a strong reaction to the banning of pipe bands from an event to be so huge. The amount of public support and online outcry for all of this resulted in the decision being overturned. Now, as to what, the negotiations were behind the scenes, I guess we'll never know, but the decision to ban pipe bands from an Anzac Day parade, in my opinion, was absolutely out of order, and pipe bands definitely have their place in such a memorial event. And I'm so grateful to see that that decision has been overturned. I do believe that this is the right decision. Now, not only did they overturn the decision and the bands will be a part of the Anzac Day commemorations this year, but there will be possible more plans to have even more pipe bands involved in future commemorations. So I have to say, that's a win right there. So given the public reaction, I'm very glad to see that the right decision, in my opinion, here has been made. And pipe bands will now be a part of the Anzac Day commemorations there in Queensland. So, hey, if you are curious about all of that, go along to Pipe Bands Queensland. You can have a look at all that detail, along with all of those news stories that were up on all of those TV shows that I mentioned. Yeah, it's all up there. So go and have a read at it, watch all of the video footage and the news coverage. Very interesting developing story of that over the course of this past week. And it's only really now we're getting to talk about it when the decision has just recently been overturned. So it was quite a negative story for best part of a week. Well, it's now a very positive one where the right outcome, in my opinion, has been concluded. So, yeah, pipe bands are now welcome back to the Brisbane Anzac Day Parade, and we believe that is correct. There you are. Moving on. Sticking with things down under, we're going to move to New Zealand for this next one, where they're now seeking expressions of interest for a director of the RNZ PBA Summer School. Yes, now full details on this are available now on the rnzpba.com if you are interested, and it will be for a full 12-month term. So this is not just for the summer. So if you are anyways curious and possibly wanting to apply for such a huge role, and let's face it, we know how big the summer school is there in the RNZ PBA. Wow. So, yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, but we do wish anyone who does apply for the role the very best. It's quite a prestigious role and an important one. So, yeah, deadlines for all of your applications is Sunday, the 18th of May, and as I said, full details are available there along with all of your requirements and all of that. It's up on the website, RNZ PBA. Just wanted to give you a heads up this week on the pod that is available. So, if you're listening to me now and you're in New Zealand and you fancy being the director of the new summer school for this year, for the next 12 months, then there you are. The opportunities are open. All right, I think at this point I'm going to draw a line under it there. I know there's a wealth of other news stories that we haven't got into, and we maybe should, but for time, we need to move on. So, if there is any news stories and stuff that we neglected to mention that we absolutely should have done, then please do email us, bigrabshow@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to bring that to a future episode of the show. But I think we do need to kind of move on at this point. I think it's time for me to go and get a big cup of tea. It's time for the topic of the week. Kingdom Thistle Pipe Band Supplies. For all your pipe band and marching band needs. Supplying everything from uniforms and instruments to custom designed bass drum heads. They offer it all. Not forgetting their exclusive Kingdom Gilly Brogues and George Boots, crafted by bands for bands. Kingdom Thistle provides expert product advice and an industry-leading drum refurbishment service to keep your equipment in top-class condition. Also, shipping worldwide. So, stop by their store in Fife or visit them online at kingdomthistle.com for all your pipe band and marching needs. Wallace Bagpipes. Quality, pride and passion. Made in Scotland. Proud bagpipe supplier to the Red Hot Chili Pipers. From the most basic of sets to the most elaborate, they have something for everyone. Also offering bagpipe repairs and restoration. From a simple makeover to a full overhaul. From a chipped mount to a complete replacement. Wallace Bagpipes have you covered. Visit wallacebagpipes.com for more information or contact your nearest dealer.
Hi, this is Anna Smart, and you're listening to The Big Rab Show.
Yes, indeed. The title of this week's episode kind of does give it away as to what this week's topic of the week is. Yeah, we're going to be talking to author and bagpiper Richard McLauchlan, who has recently written a brand new book called The Bagpipes, A Cultural History. Now, you might think to yourself, it's just another history book about pipes, but no, this one is completely different. It talks about the cultural history of bagpipes, and there's so many different elements to this. And I absolutely was fascinated whenever I was reading the press release on this. So I've done a lot of homework, and yeah, I had to talk to the man himself to find out about, well, first of all, about his own bagpiping journey, but also why did he choose to write this book in the first place? And did he discover any kind of interesting bits along the way? So, let's not waste any more time. Let's talk to the man himself. Let's welcome Richard to the podcast. Richard, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for having me, Rob.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, well, I have to say, I am filled with questions for this upcoming publication that you have. You're behind a new book called The Bagpipes, A Cultural History. Can you tell us a bit about your own background and why bagpipes?
Sure, yes. Well, I'm a piper myself. We had some pipers in the family that I knew of growing up, and my uncle on my mum's side was a founding member of Silly Wizard, nice. and I was immediately struck when I saw the lone piper up on the parapet at Edinburgh Castle during the tattoo when I was a young lad, and it just moved me, and I wanted to play, and I was very fortunate to go to a school in Edinburgh, the Edinburgh Academy, where we had brilliant instructors So Jimmy Pride of Amazing Grace fame was my first instructor, and I went on to have Colin McLauchlan. I was very fortunate to be instructed by him, and it was a great joy to be in that band. We toured Japan, Canada, Italy, and I eventually ended up pipe major, and it was just great fun. And since then, I've the pipes are the reason I met my now wife, busking in Germany, and it's just played a really central role in my life.
There you are. So definitely a bit of a storied history there with you, Richard, and a real love for the instrument. So is that the reason behind the decision to write a book about them?
Well, funnily enough, I was the origins of the book. I was at a lunch with the managing director of the publishing firm that I've written some books for before, and I was just mentioning the story about how I met my wife, and he hadn't realized that I was a piper. And he immediately asked, being a publisher, well, has there been a really accessible cultural history of the book? And I thought to myself, there must have been something, that would fit that bill. But sure enough, when I went away and looked into it, nothing that really sort of fitted that bill exactly had been produced. And there's been a lot of sort of scholarly work, excellent work, but nothing that was sort of accessible going from sort of earliest times through to the contemporary era, and really focusing in on this sort of cultural element. So it was a gap in the market, and I had a love for the instrument. I wasn't hugely knowledgeable at that time. I hadn't read my William Donaldsons and my Hugh Cheaps and my Roderick Cannons. I was, I had to get into all that. And there's still, even having written the book, there's still so much I don't know. It's just an amazingly, endlessly fascinating subject. So no, I certainly had the passion, and I'm just delighted that the publisher saw an opening.
Oh, but absolutely. I think you're 100% on the money. There has been books and stuff written before about, where bagpipes was first turned up and stuff. But one of the things that I wasn't aware of is one of the things that's actually on the website when it talks about the book, about the Roman Emperor Nero. Tell us about this.
Well, this extraordinary, yes, that he is the first named bagpiper in history, and
wow,
and really the sort of first century AD in Rome is where we get the first really solid, concrete evidence of the bagpipe's existence. I mean, it's very clear in the Greek there. The writer writes about Nero playing a pipe with his mouth and with a bag tucked under his armpit. It couldn't be clearer. So it's incredible that the first named piper should be a Roman emperor.
There you go. Yeah. So talk about starting high up the food chain, I guess. Yeah. But then there's been other notable pipers even from then. There's been like kings, queens, czars, all sorts, I guess, throughout this. So I guess you've been, delving into the research of all of this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that you mentioned czars. I think it's mentioned on the book's blurb, but it's Tsar Peter the Great, that when his pet bear died, he commanded that he had the lifeless body, as it were, resurrected in the form of a bagpipe.
Wow, there you go.
Tells you something.
It does, all right. So, well, not only is this a kind of a story as to the origin of bagpipes, but it also, as you mentioned, talks about the cultural impact of them. Now, obviously, here in the show, we talk about great Highland bagpipes all the time. That's kind of what we know and love. But there's so many different variations of bagpipes as well. Do you get into that as well?
Absolutely. And it's been estimated that there's about 130 different forms of bagpipe, which is quite extraordinary. No, absolutely. I try and cover, of course, the great Highland pipes are probably the most mentioned pipes in the book, naturally. But I try and get into a large range of different types of pipes, and and try and sort of break down our preconceptions around the history of the instrument. And we think quite sort of monoculturally and quite narrowly about the instrument, but actually, it's a really a global instrument with so many varieties, informing so many different cultures. And it's one of the things that really struck me in the research for this book was the way that on the one hand, seemed to be a paradox. On the one hand, the pipes were global and they seemed to be in so many countries, and yet in each of these places they were taken as incredibly powerful identity markers. You know, this speaks for us in a particularly strong way. And how can this be? This on the one hand, so particular. This is our instrument, and on the other hand, they're everywhere. And that's this ties something. There's something very mysterious about the pipes, that it has that capacity.
Yeah, that's it. And I can even think, just off the top of my head, there's so many nationalities that claim bagpipes as their own. You know, I think recently we were talking about Iranian bagpipes and how you know, how they like play it almost vertically and stuff and have one drone. And then we're talking about bagpipes from Greece, and then obviously from Ireland and Scotland and all of that. Sure. But they really are a global instrument. So I'm so glad you mentioned that you found that in your research. That's fascinating.
Absolutely. And I hope it just makes people think a little bit differently about the instrument. Not to do down the Great Highland pipes or anything like that, but just to see that that's one form amongst many, and that you know, this is a really diverse culture.
Absolutely. So, well, I have to talk then about the Great Highland bagpipes themselves, and talking about them culturally. The book does get into that. And one of the things that I found really interesting as part of the blurb on the website here is that you chart the rise of women bagpipers. Now, that's been a bit of a discussion on our show for a while. Yeah. So has that been, you know, any great significant findings in there?
Absolutely. You know, the thing I felt about the pipes was that they're a really good lens through which to view certain aspects of society. You know, you can look at class, you can look at capitalism. Absolutely, you can look at these gender issues and take particular stories from the piping world, and they enlighten the whole culture, as it were. Yeah. And on the one hand, there was fascinating insights into, you know, when you look at who was and was not championing women pipers, you take someone like Seamus McNeill, who was famously conservative in so many respects, you know, called Gordon Duncan's music garbage, but at the same time, a great champion of women pipers. You take in stories from, say, I spoke to a lot of great names as I was doing the research, but Bill Livingston's story at a Highland Games, and he took his wife into, this is in the 70s, I think, he took his wife into the tent, the sort of players' tent, and they all had their wee sort of shrines with their crisps and their tennants and their sandwiches and whatever, their pipe case. And it was very much a male-only world, right? And in she came, and apparently they all lifted up their kilts and started urinating against the side of the tent.
Wow.
As a kind of marking their territory. And it was shocking, you know, and actually this was after the point at which, you know, in a way, by that stage, you would have thought things would have been more open and tolerant and things. But actually there are some stories which suggest that piping was behind the trend, really. And it's, you know, and as we know from recent studies, there's still a lot of work to do there to make it a more inclusive world. But so I found that fascinating to see, sort of, you know, it was a lens to view society more generally. What were the issues? And, you know, the lovely surprising stories, like the fact that the first state school pipe band in Scotland was founded by a woman, Bessie Watson, and she was otherwise known as the suffragette piper girl. And there are these great photos, and there's one in the book of her performing at these suffragette demonstrations, you know, as a wee girl with her Highland pipes, you know. Yeah. And she was a pioneer. She was a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. And the story of you know, women-only pipe bands and how they came and emerged, and the role that Australia had in that story, again, sort of breaking down our sort of Scottish sort of focused thinking. And of course, the Dagenham Girl Pipers, famously, you know, being based in the outskirts of London, and these took the world by storm. These bands, you know,
Yeah.
and really broke the mold and made us think differently about piping. So no, it's that whole story about the rise of women pipers I found utterly fascinating. And of course now we have someone like Ali the Piper, who's potentially the best known piper that there is.
That's it, yeah.
So it's an American woman. It's not a Scottish man, as lots of people might think. So I just find that whole story fascinating.
Oh, it is, absolutely, yeah. And as we're seeing now that we're starting to see more and more women having more representation in the piping scene, and long may it continue. It's brilliant. Yeah. So you're talking about breaking down barriers and everything, and obviously you mentioned class there. Were bagpipes ever seen as like, oh, they're only for the top brass? The really rich folks can afford to play bagpipes, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, of course, we know of the hereditary pipers, most famously the McCrimmons, and if you look at the famous portrait, The Piper to the Laird of Grant, 1714, he's wearing very sort of luscious, expensive clothes, and there was evidently great status there, and they were taxmen, so. They had a particular role in society, which was, quite high up in the hierarchy. But at the same time, sometimes it's been written out of the stories. They were the kind of common community pipers. And, one quite compelling theory around, so you look at the Canadian piping culture, particularly in Nova Scotia and Cape Breton, that kind of... it's argued that culture that left with the clearances, as it were, this kind of community piper, ear learned, Gaelic speaking, very much focused more on sort of providing pipes for social settings, for dance in particular. That these came across, and that tradition continued, and the piping was quite distinct. It was faster. It was more rounded. It was dance focused. And whereas Scotland went off on its own trajectory, more competition focused, pointed playing, became important, and so on. And the connection to dance was lost. And anyway, but the class stories. So yes, you got these community pipers, just everyday people, as well as the hereditary pipers, and then the sort of that role of the clan chief's piper. They were. Again, that carried on well into the 19th century, as these men having really quite status. But then, as the landowners sort of wanted more bang for their buck, they wanted their piper to do more menial tasks. To be the chauffeur, to be the forester, to be the gillie, or whatever it was. Yeah. And so the piper, and then you found some pipers finding this was demeaning them. And then, of course, you have the whole rise of the kind of mining communities and so on, and what that says about class. And then we come into more recent times, and what's happening is funding becomes harder. It's the private schools that become, at the school level, more dominant. So you're shifting back into a different type of socio-economic world. So you see this fluctuating culture, as it were, so you can't just say pipers have always belonged to this group and can be labeled in this way. It's a developing and evolving story.
It sort of ebbs and flows. So even the book now examines where it is today, and it looks at piping right now in the 2020s. Absolutely. So honestly, for this, I have so many questions. I could chat to you about this now from the next fortnight. But I have to ask, does it look into the impact in the military fashion? We've spoke about this before in the show about Highland pipes being the instrument of war. Does that get looked at the book?
Oh, absolutely. You couldn't not look at that, of course. So yeah, it starts from the first mentions of references to pipes in war, sort of 16th century, and it takes it right through to today. And of course, it looks closely at the role that the pipes played in terms of the colonial activities of the British Army. it looks at the first and it looks closely at the First and Second World Wars and the role of the pipes in those wars.
Yeah,
and goes looks at some of the kind of classic magnetic stories that we have of pipers going over the top, but then some other lesser known stories of heroism and bravery and sacrifice, and some just great eccentrics like Mad Jack Churchill with his sort of clay bag and his bow and arrow and stuff like that. And really, almost on the final page, it finishes up with the great story about the fact that the one thing that we know the Queen sort of broke the Constitution for was to try and was the bagpipes, and that she approached George Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, to say, "Don't you dare cut the funding to this, the School of Highland Piping and Drumming," and so the kind of military life of the pipes, and of course the rise of pipe bands. I mean, that whole story gets told as well.
Yeah.
And the role that the army played in that. Although interestingly, it's so much broader than that, the story about the rise of pipes. I think we sometimes are too narrow in our thinking. It's the military, but actually there's more to it.
Oh, definitely. There's the whole civilian aspect of it as well. Totally. When they returned from war and then they formed all of these bands. It's a huge story here for Northern Ireland, I guess. I'm being, completely local and completely selfish here. But from where I'm based, you constantly hear stories about how folks came back from either the First or Second World War and they played pipes in war and then decided, "Hey, we all play. Do you want to play tunes together?" And then before you know it, they formed a band. Do you find that?
Absolutely. Well, what happened was, so after the First World War, there was I think the figures are something like 500 killed, 600 wounded of the pipers in the First World War. I mean, astonishing statistics. Yeah. And there was a real call in sort of post-First World War to, we've got to, this tradition is on its last legs because look, the whole generation has been wiped out. Yeah. We need to, reinvigorate this tradition again. And sons, if your dads were a piper, you picked up the pipes too, carry it on, kind of thing. And then what happened after the Second World War is amazing. There weren't so many casualties, and you found that there was this huge demand for pipe. Obviously, the pipes were so popular in the military context and so on, and young people were just like, "I want a bit of that, I want to play." And of course, it's in that context that you get the College of Piping in Glasgow being founded and so on. And so absolutely, the wars were kind of catalysts for, fresh blood coming into the piping world.
They are, yeah. Well, I suppose I'm going to bring it right up to date now. Obviously, we went through quite a horrible time in 2019, 2020 during the pandemic. That had a huge effect on the bagpiping world. Everything stopped. And a lot of people kind of fell away from the music. But what we're finding now is that people are sort of rediscovering it again. And there is kind of a renaissance happening in the bagpiping world. So have you noticed that culturally?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I've been told by sort of authorities that I trust on this matter, they'd say, there's never been so many people playing the pipes.
Yeah, that's true.
And not just people playing the pipes, but there's a huge openness to variation. So for instance, so many of the kind of top Highland pipers, they're absolutely fantastic on the bellows pipes as well. Or you get, traditionally we're used to these sort of quite separate worlds, the sort of pipe band world, the solo world, the folk world, and there's been some bad blood between those worlds.
There has, yeah.
And again, what you find now is people passing kind of almost without noticing it between the different worlds and being at home within them. Yeah. And I just find that all quite exciting. It doesn't mean that there's not a lot of issues still in the piping world. And my final chapter takes a particular look at the sort of contemporary scene in Scotland and sort of says, if you were being pessimistic, what would you think of this? And if you're being optimistic, where would you put your focus on? And actually, overall, on balance, we're in a pretty good place with lots to do, but pretty good place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm always the optimist. I always think there's a silver lining. Absolutely. So, Richard, I have to say, I'm absolutely fascinated. I can't wait to get my hands on this. I've been reading a lot about the book, and when is the book available? When can people get their hands on it?
Well, it's the 24th of April, so it's almost there.
There you are. It's on a couple of days from the point of us recording this, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. I just had my delivery of the books, of my copies, like 2 days ago. So I'm only just holding them for the first time.
Oh, superb. What's that feel like? That's bound to feel, that's pretty cool.
It's always an amazing thing when you spend so long working on something and then it becomes a reality. You know, it's not just in your mind and in your brain. But of course, it's also nerve-wracking because people have strong opinions on the pipes, as we know.
Absolutely, yeah. We talk about it every week. Yep.
Yeah. And you're putting yourself out there, and there's a lot of sort of competing views on things. And I've just tried to remain balanced and sort of try and sum up the differing views that you come across, and not be too sort of hardline on anything myself, and just present the range of opinions. And I just really hope people respond to that and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, do you know, I'm going to say that I'm going to put myself out there. I think this is kind of the first book that I've noticed that actually gets into the cultural impact of them. You know, we've had tons of like musical histories and stuff like that with the bagpipes. You know, we know where the tunes came from back in the P-Brick days. But this is such an interesting study, and I cannot wait to get between the covers of this. So if you are interested in grabbing a copy, depending on where you're listening to this right now, there are links in the show notes right now to HurstPublishers.com. You can go and have a look there, or it's available everywhere you can get your books. So, Richard, I have to say a huge thank you for this great body of work and for chatting to us here on the show. Really appreciate your time.
It's been a great joy. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, and definitely a book worthy of adding to your collection for sure. And if you are anyways curious of getting your own copy of this book, then check out all the links that are in your show notes right now, as we mentioned, or even just type it into your search engine. The book's called The Bagpipes, A Cultural History, and go and check it out. I think you'll definitely learn a thing or two. Even for us drummers out there, there'll be something in here of interest. Yeah. So, folks, I have to say a huge thank you to Richard for joining us on the show this week and telling us all about this exciting new publication. And for anyone else out there that does manage to pick up a copy of the book, then let us know what you think of it. Yeah, you can email us in, bigrabshow@gmail.com, and let us know your thoughts on this. Yeah, quite an interesting publication, that. Yeah. All right, folks, that's it for another Big Rab Show pod. Yes, another topic is in the can, and that's us for another week. Again, I have to say a huge thank you to everyone who did reach out following last week's episode. Yes, things are now back to normal, as you can hear. We now have a full episode for you. So, yeah, the train keeps it rolling, as they say. If you are out competing this weekend, of course, at the Antrim Indoor or other competitions across the globe, then best of luck, have a good tune, and send us in a selfie as well. Yeah, we haven't got any Big Rab Show selfies of late, so send them in to us. Again, our email address if you do want to contact us, or even send us in selfies. Or do you know something we haven't had in a long time? Voicemails. Yeah, it's been forever since we've had a Big Rab Show voicemail. So, yeah, if you want to have your voice on the show, you can. Send us in your voicemails. bigrabshow@gmail.com. And, you can be on next week's show. Well, speaking of next week's show, actually, we have quite a huge topic of the week to bring you. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a good one. So, if you aren't already subscribed to us, then please do. Click that follow button or subscribe wherever you're listening to us right now. And, you'll be able to catch next week's show. Yeah. All right, folks, I am out the door. Thank you all so much for downloading this week and each and every week. Don't forget to tell your mates about our wee show, about what we're doing over here, talking about what the music that we know and love, to be the music of the great Highland bagpipe. Indeed. Right, folks, we're away, and we'll see you all on next week's show. Until then, all the best. Well, that's it for another Big Rab Show podcast. Thanks so much for downloading this week, and a special thank you to our sponsor, G1 Reeds. Played by bands around the world, they are the champion's choice. Check out g1reeds.com for all of your piping needs. Don't forget to check out thebigrabshow.com to be kept up to date with all of the latest news and views from around the piping world. And also, check us out on Patreon. For $5 a month, you can get your hands on tons of extra piping goodness and be a part of the Patreon faithful. So, Until next week, folks, we'll see you right here on the Big Rab Show podcast. All the best.